has been so for some long while, but it seems more so of late, that the message that is out there is turn inward, turn inward, turn inward. But it seems, as was said these last several getting-togethers, that our next avenue of exploration should be exploring the inward and the outward. To this end, there's a story that is my own personal story that some of you already know parts of, but in telling this segment, it enables several questions to be asked relative to our exploration. When my husband and I were transferred to Hawaii, even though I learned of Divine Mother immediately from my neighbor, I did not come into her presence for 1.5 years. And this story is what was contained in those 1.5 years. When I arrived in Hawaii, I was falling apart. My spiritual world was crumbling. All of the knowledge that I'd gathered after so many years of inquiry, disciplines and readings were not holding any water for me, gave me no satisfaction at all. But after a few weeks in Hawaii, I came to meet a lady, and we got into a spiritual discussion. And she said to me after our conversation, I have a friend who is a yogi master and she's here in Hawaii at the moment. Would you like to meet her? So of course my answer immediately was yes. And she said, she's in retreat in a Catholic monastery at the moment, and there's no phone there. But if she contacts me, would you like to have lunch? I said, yes, of course. So that lunch, of course, was arranged. But in the meantime, I had a very poignant dream. And that dream was that I was in a house and I had to make a telephone call. But I realized the telephone was upstairs. And to get there, I had to climb a very steep ladder, and I was carrying 2 heavy buckets. When I got upstairs, the attic room was filled with trash. But I found the telephone and the wire attached to it, but I could not find where to plug in the telephone. So at the lunch with the yogi master, I related my dream, and she said, you have to do my seminar. So the next weekend, my husband and I and several others gathered at the Catholic retreat house where Saliji, that was what she was called, conducted a weekend seminar of presenting the different methods of meditation. But during that weekend, it's not recalled whether it was words or whether it was in the practices she gave to us, but there was an absolute awareness that I had been plugged in. So that started a train of events which commenced with my meditating for many hours a day. But after some weeks of this, one night I went to bed after my husband and Erica had also gone to bed, and I was sitting on the toilet. And as I was sitting on the toilet, a voice started to speak to me, and I was quite freaked out. But having read many, many books on the occult, I made the inquiry, who are you and what do you want to speak to me for? And the voice, which was a gentle man's voice, said, I am Peter, the son of John. My immediate reaction was, Peter, the son of John, is from the Bible, and you don't even have a Bible. And what would he want to speak to you for? And the voice got a little impatient, and all it said was, John 3:12. So I went to the notepad by the bed and I wrote down John 3:12. And in the morning, after the husband and daughter had gone, I went to the daughter's room because she had a Bible. And in that passage, John 3:12 says something like, if I speak to you of earthly things and you don't believe me, how will you believe me if I speak to you of spiritual things? So this was a crisis point in my life. So I went to meditate on it, but there was hardly any decision to be made because I was obviously falling apart. And of course, the choice was to go with the voice that was speaking to me. After several weeks, this came to the notice of Sally G, who had returned to San Francisco, told by one of the meditators who came and joined us for meditation. And so Sally G came to our house in Hawaii, and she stayed with us for 6 months. During those 6 months, she gave me what she termed higher teachings and initiations and practices. And then she left. And from that time and for the following year, there was a series of very extraordinary and intense occult experiences. But that is the stuff of another story. But out of this story arises the questions which are posed to you now as divine psychologists with the wealth of wisdom and experience that you have to enable you to claim this. The questions are, was this an inward or an outward experience? And what was it that I was connected to or believed that I was connected to? What say you? Was this an inward or an outward experience? And what was the connection that was made? and outward. What say you?
In that context, I would say inward and outward were the same. But if I was talking to you as Annabelle and Pat, I would say that's an outward interaction.
Right.
But when I or other people, I very rarely have that kind of experience, I would say I'm experiencing the connection through something that is part of me but is much bigger.
Yes.
It's like everything but it's in me.
Yes.
If that makes any sense at all.
Indeed it does.